But I'm glad we you took it round to the seafarer, because obviously that's where we wanted to be with this debate, really, and looking at what it does actually mean for seafarers. And we don't have a seafarer on this to put on the stage today, but Simon, this is your bread and butter, working with seafarers, understanding where they're at, where their heads are at, what they need. So I mean, it'd be great if you could just sort of tell us. I know you've done your recent study about the impact of decarbonisation on seafarers. So if I could get you to kind of, what does it tell us, and how are seafarers approaching this right now?
Yes, certainly. We were picking up on the helplines some sort of anxieties from crew about decarbonisation, and wondering, is that just a reaction to change, a natural reaction to change, or is there something more than that? And also very much struck by, whenever we went to conferences, all the discussion was very much about the technical elements and very little about the impact on the humans who are responsible for delivering it. So somebody on my team is a former engineer. He actually suggested that we come up with a survey amongst seafarers that we have contact with. We've got about 400 responses, so it's a small study, but actually quite interesting, the responses that we got. The bulk of people that came back to us were engineers, unsurprisingly, but we also got responses from deck officers and some from shoreside as well. There was a lot of positivity about decarbonisation. It's the right thing to do. It's an exciting professional challenge to be part of that. So I thought, that's important to sort of emphasise at the outset. But also, of course, there were concerns. Workload. The additional workload, they were already experiencing that, and then the resultant fatigue that might come from that. The challenge of being faced with commercial pressures on one side and regulatory requirements on the other. I think seafarers must sometimes feel that they're a melon between two boulders, and it takes a certain type of person to be able to cope well with those kind of pressures and be able to perform. Also challenges in terms of the different regulatory regimes and what would be the impact of that. Those on fixed trading patterns, obviously they found that less of an issue, and actually you learn as you go along and you start to build up the relationships and the experience. There was quite a bit of discussion about blame. If something goes wrong, who's to blame? And inevitably for seafarers, when you look at some of the high-profile incidents that we've had recently, where seafarers are very much in the front line when something goes wrong, what's the impact of that on their psychological well-being? And also, how will they handle difficulties? How will they handle things that they don't understand? Will they readily come out and say, do you know what, I don't understand this and I need some support? And also, if you think about how precarious their employment can sometimes be, that's not a very good mix in terms of creating an environment in which, look, we're all in this together and we want to be able to find solutions together. There were concerns about training, and of course that's linked to workload as well. And then lastly, of course, safety as well. One of the seafarers described it as being a bit like a test pilot for a new type of aircraft. And a bit exciting, but at the same time quite worrying. So that's sort of the feedback that we were getting through this study.
Yeah. You may not be aware, we've been releasing sort of training titles on this, and at the end of training titles, people get to put their feedback in, and the feedback, I'm seeing something very similar in terms of the enthusiasm for learning about it as a subject. It's scoring very well on that sort of engagement stuff.